I read 10 books in September. Let's talk about it. The first book I read was Wedding People by Alison Espach, and when I first read this book I gave it 3 stars. However, now I'm going to give it 4 stars. So if you haven't read this book and have seen it kind of all over your book talk, or you've kind of been recommended it, I just want to say a very quick warning. It does start off with a very heavy topic of someone who is very depressed and wants to end their life, but the whole story is based around that, but it's not kind of brought up in the way it is in the first chapter, first page. Now, I love this book when I think back to it. The storyline of it is very, very good, but when I was reading it, it did take me a little while to get into it, and I still think that the ending was kind of disappointed. So kind of the storyline of the book, without giving away too many spoilers, is Phoebe goes to this hotel to kind of end her life. She meets this bride, and the hotel is only meant to be for the wedding party, and she kind of jokes about with the bride and is like, oh, I'm only here to end my life, and the bride is like, no, this is my wedding, you can't do that, you're going to spoil the day. And she kind of thinks that she's joking about. And then later on, the bride comes to check on Phoebe and realizes that she was actually serious, and invites her to the wedding to kind of cheer her up, and says, if you're going to do it, then please wait until the wedding's over, I don't want you to ruin my wedding, kind of being a bit like self-centered. And in the end, Phoebe becomes good friends with the bride and is ending up being a part of the wedding. She becomes the maid of honor, and it's really, really like fun to see the different perspectives. So because Phoebe's a kind of a nobody, she's not part of either one of the family, both the bride and the groom are confiding in her, and we get to see how the groom's really feeling and how the bride is really, really feeling, and I kind of like that part of it. So I do give this a 4 stars, and it was definitely a good read. But I just think if you are going to read it, do give it a go, because if you're anything like I am, it did take me a little while to get into. Okay, so the next book I read was The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden, and I actually read this one on my Kindle, and this was the first book I read on my Kindle, and oh my god, I love it. I definitely still prefer reading a physical book, but in the evenings when I'm feeding Ivy, it's so much easier to read on the Kindle, so I'm so excited to continue reading books. But yes, the next book I read was The Boyfriend. So I gave this one 4.5 stars, and if you don't know what this book is about, basically this woman meets a guy and she's going on dates with him, and she realizes that he's really, really nice, and when we're reading it, we kind of think that he's a bit creepy, but she doesn't see that side of him. And her best friend is killed in her apartment, and as you're reading it, you're like, oh my god, it's the boyfriend. The title of the book is called The Boyfriend. Oh my god, it's him. And I personally was screaming at my Kindle being like, oh my god, it's him, get away from him, you're gonna die. But there was an unexpected ending, which I'm not going to share about because I don't want to give you any spoilers, but it was just an incredible book, and I would never have been able to guess the ending of it. And Frida McFadden is an excellent writer when it comes to mystery thrillers, and this book, 4.5 stars. I don't know why I didn't give it 5 stars. Obviously, as I was reading it, there was just that element that I thought was missing, but definitely a good book. Okay, so the next book was also on my Kindle. It was Killjoy, which is a novella to the series Good Girl's Guide to Murder. Now, I did just want to give an honourable mention to the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. I actually read this in August, and I was going to do a video talking about books I read in August, but I only read this series and it would be like a 2-minute long video. So I'm just going to say that I gave the first book, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, 5 stars. The second book, Good Girl, Bad Blood, I gave 4.5 stars. And then the third book, I gave 5 stars, which is As Good as Dead. So if you haven't read this series, please go and read it. Oh my god, it is incredible. And yeah, I just wanted to say that I read this in August, but I wanted to kind of put it in here because I read Killjoy, the novella. Now, I only gave Killjoy 2.5 stars because I kind of thought it was irrelevant, it didn't match to the series at all. But if you are going to read the series, I highly recommend reading Killjoy as book 1, because in the book, Pip and her friends host a murder mystery night, and it tells you why Pip chose to do her EPQ about the Andy Bell case. So if you haven't read book 1 to Good Girls Guide to Murder, Pip is using the Andy Bell case for her EPQ, which is kind of like her homework, her assessment, and she is pulling all these different clues, and she realizes that the person that was charged for the murder didn't actually do it. So the Killjoy novella is basically just saying how she came up with that idea of doing that for her homework, and reading it last didn't make sense, so highly recommend reading it first, although when you Google it, it doesn't say anything about reading it first, second, third, fourth. The next book I read was Beach Read by Emily Henry, and I gave this one 4.5 stars, and this was my first proper romance, and oh my god, I love it. So this book was actually part of my monthly Discord book, so I am part of a Discord group where we pick a book every month, we read it, and then we all review it at the end of the month, and this book was picked in that group. However, this was on my TBR, so I was happy to read it anyway, and oh my god, I love Emily Henry. So this particular book, we have 2 writers who are in a bit of a writing slump. The girl in the book, which her name is January, she goes to this beach house and she is packing it up and she's selling it because it was her dad's beach house, and in the book, the dad cheated on the mum. So obviously she wants to get rid of this house because it's got no really good memories attached to it. So January's in this house purely just to pack it up and sell it, and then she ends up meeting the neighbour, which is Gus, and Gus is also a writer. So they're both in a writing slump and they challenge each other to write a book by the end of the summer, but there's a twist. So January only writes romance books and she challenges Gus to write a romance book, and he does the same. He challenges her to write a book in his genre, and they make kind of a fun game of it. So every weekend they go and do research for the opposite genre. So January will take Gus on a romantic date so that he can learn to write about romance, because he's never really like been in love, although she thinks. And he does the same. He takes her to little research dates as well, and in the end of it they end up falling in love, which, if you couldn't tell, that always happens in a romance book. And it is just honestly such a sweet thing. So for example, one of the dates, January takes Gus to a fun fair, because in every single romance film they're always going to a fun fair and fall in love, and it's just really, really cute. Highly recommend. 4.5 stars. The next book I read was on my Kindle again, and this was Death Row by Freda McFadden. This book I gave 2.5 stars. Honestly, I don't have anything to say about it. This woman is on death row for killing her husband or fiance, I can't remember, and she has a strong alibi. And at the start of the book, the first chapter, I thought, oh my god, this is really, really good, but as I continued to read, I just got really confused. So if anyone can let me know in the comments what actually happened at the end, because I still don't understand, don't know. But it was only 83 pages long, so it was just like a quick read. But yeah, I don't have anything further to say about that one. Kind of low-key rubbish, hence why I rated it 2.5 stars. I don't even know why I rated it that high, because I don't understand what happened, but I suppose because the start of it I was actually really enjoying it. The next book was another Kindle read. This one was The Tenant by Freda McFadden, which is actually the cover on my Kindle now. I don't know if you can see, but I gave this one 4.5 stars, and again this had a mystery thriller aspect to it, and the ending again was so unexpected. So this may be classed as a spoiler, so skip ahead if you don't want a spoiler. But basically what happens, they have a tenant come and move in, and the tenant is causing loads of drama, and the male in the house thinks, oh my god, this new tenant is awful, like we need to get her out. But in reality, it's actually the wife getting revenge on her husband, and he's thinking it's the tenant, but it's actually the wife. And just funny little things that the tenant does is, there was a bag of apples put in the back of the cupboard, and obviously it started rotting, and there was maggots and fruit flies all over the kitchen, and he thought, oh my god, this tenant is just causing trouble. The wife also hid a speaker in the wardrobe which was playing like banging noises, so again the husband thought that she was banging upstairs, but it wasn't. It was actually just the wife playing a clip through the speaker. And it's just so funny, all of the things that were being done, and I highly recommend. 4.5 stars. The next book I read was The Road Trip by Beth O'Leary, and I actually read this one on my Kindle, but I do own the physical book, and this one I gave 3 stars. Now, the reason why I gave it 3 stars is because this book is written in 2 perspectives. Each chapter we go back and forth, and when we go back in time, I really enjoyed that part of the book, but in the current, like present time, I was struggling to connect. So basically, in the present time, we are on a road trip, and in the car we have the 2 sisters, and then in the back we have the ex and his best friend. So at the start of the book, she crashes into her ex, who is also going to this wedding, and she ends up giving him a ride, and it's really awkward. And then the whole road trip is not going to plan. There's traffic, like roadworks, the car has a problem, I think the tyre goes, and honestly just everything that you can name happens in this like road trip to the wedding, and they don't end up making it there in time. But we keep going back in time to see how the 2 met and how they broke up. So she is a cleaner in this holiday home, and he comes over obviously on holiday, and she's cleaning the room, and he asks her for some help because he's having trouble with the blind, and he ends up falling in love with her. And it's really cute because they're in this holiday home doing holiday adventures in this country, which I can't remember. I think it's Greece, but I don't know, don't quote me on that. And yeah, the romance side of it is really fun. I loved it, but the actual road trip kind of found really boring, so that's why I only gave it 3 stars. The next book I read was Three's a Crowd. Again, I read this one on my Kindle, but I own the physical book. I gave this one 3.5 stars because it's literally as you expect. What you think is going to happen happens. She has 2 best friends and she has to pick between them, and that's all I'm going to say. If you're looking for a quick read, because honestly this book is so small, go ahead, read it. It's really fun, but it is very predictable, hence why I only gave it 3.5 stars. But the characters are both lovable, the scene is lovely, the adventure that they go on again is lovely, the idea of it's nice, but just because it was so predictable, that's only why I gave it 3.5 stars. The next book I read was again on my Kindle, and this one was The Housemaid by Frida McFadden, and I have only read the first book, so I am going to be reading the other 2 books that are part of this series. I just haven't got around to it yet, but oh my god, 4.5 stars. This book was amazing, and I read this one next on the list of Frida McFadden books because I'd seen so many people recommending, and I know that they have just turned this into a film, so I really want to go and watch it, so I have to read the other 2 books first. But oh my god, if you haven't read The Housemaid, please go and read it. Just a little bit of context, the family house is run by a very rich couple, and you can just kind of assume their personalities from saying that they're rich, kind of snobby, and they hire this housemaid to come and clean, and the housemaid thinks that the husband is amazing and the wife is kind of a bitch, and it turns out to be the complete opposite. The wife has been through a lot, and because of that she acts a certain way, and the whole plan was to get the husband to fall in love with the maid so that she could leave and get out of this hostile situation, which the maid soon realizes once that happens. But yeah, I don't want to say too much more because it is honestly an amazing, and I can't wait to read the other 2 books to this series. And then the final book that I read in September was Abby Jimenez's Say You'll Remember Me, and I gave this book 5 stars. Honestly, I loved it. Now, if you are going to read it, I am just going to give a little bit of a warning. This does have some heavy topics. For example, the mum has dementia in it, so just keep that in consideration if you are going to read it. However, if you can get past that, oh my god, this is amazing. Now, this is like my second pop of romance that I've read, and I love that this told it in a realistic way. So for example, in Beach Reads, it's kind of like a fairy tale. It kind of doesn't really happen like that, whereas in this book it is so realistic. So we have a long distance relationship which you can see them trying to work out, trying to figure out, and we also see the money issues of a long-term relationship, because obviously there's planes involved, hotels, hiring cars, and honestly, I love this book. I cannot wait to read more of Abby Jimenez's books. I'm not sure if they're all of like similar realistic romances, but this was 5-star read. So that is all of the books that I read in September. Please let me know any recommendations that you want me to read in October. Now, I didn't have that many good reads. A lot of the Freedom McFadden books I gave 4 stars, 4.5 stars, and then Abby Jimenez I gave 5 stars, Beach Reads I gave 4.5 stars. But in terms of the other books, Death Row, The Road Trip, Three's a Crowd, they are all kind of a little bit more disappointing reads. So please let me know if you've read any of these books and what you gave the ratings, and let me know books that I need to read. So on my TBR, I do have the 2 other books, the Housemaid series, and I also have a few Elle Kennedy books, and obviously I enjoyed Emily Henry's book, so I want to get some more of hers. But yeah, let me know any series that I need to read, and I hope that you enjoyed this video.